I grew up in Southeast Queens, Jamaica, born and raised there, except for the summers that we spent in South Carolina, which is where my parents are from. But in the main, it was South Jamaica and that whole area of Queens. My father was a Garveyite in the sense that he appreciated and talked about Garvey. My mother was we were always conscious that we were Black and that the idea of being Black was to be superior. And we were superior, and in my mother's eyes, because my mother's position was that we taught white people everything they knew. And so that made us very conscious of that fact, the question of consciousness as it applied to action. I lived in Long Island City, Queensbridge housing projects, that I think we were the second or third family that were Black in that development. The racism was unbelievable, and so my mother and father and friends, that was a struggle. So that I suppose the idea of active consciousness has always been what I was into. I came to recognize the absolute beauty of Black women from the extravaganza called Black is Beautiful. And those sisters, their hair, their outfits, most beautiful sight. Because remember, a part of that whole motion was jazz, was the music. And so at one or more of the concerts, I don't remember, but I saw Numsa and Sokola there, beautiful Black women.
Viola Plummer is an activist and community organizer. She has been involved in various social justice movements throughout her career. Viola Plummer is known for her activism in areas such as civil rights, anti-police brutality, and economic justice. She has been a prominent figure in advocating for the rights of marginalized communities, particularly African Americans. One of her notable roles has been her involvement in community organizations and grassroots movements, working towards empowering local communities and addressing issues affecting them. Plummer became the head of the December 12th movement and is to bring awareness to Black people and solutions to the institutionalized wrongdoing by governments visited upon targeted Black communities.
What led to the formation of the December 12th initially coalition was that in Goshen, New York, there had been an attack on this young woman named Tawana Brawley by these white racists, and you know, the story evolves and changes and takes on an entirely different meaning. However, when we heard about that incident, we were upstate in court because 3 of our comrades had been arrested and were in jail in Goshen. While in jail, they witnessed these young Puerto Rican men being in lockdown It was the dead of winter, and the guards in their hoods opened the windows and turned the cold water on these comrades. Because there was a movement against police brutality. When we witnessed that, it was a demand that we respond, and we did. And so we took busloads to Goshen, I think that was the name of the town, to protest that treatment. And while we were there, we heard about the attack on Tawana Brawley.
Tawana Brawley is a 16-year-old girl whose story is the talk of New York these days.
The New York State teenager who claims that she was abducted and raped by 6 white men.
She was found wrapped in a plastic bag, by some accounts, sexually assaulted.
The 16-year-old cheerleader said she'd been abducted 4 days earlier and had been repeatedly raped and sodomized.
And so that the motion was a continuous motion to fight oppression, right? Nationally and internationally. And Olombe always made that hook. It was never separate. Olombe, when the whole idea of the hair style came and who you were, and the question of Afro-Americans, I know Olombe railed against that. Olombe said there's no such place in the world as Afro, that either you're an African American, an African born in America, hence that whole name change from Negro to this to that to Afro was Olombe pushing, you're an African.
Viola Plummer and Olombe Brath share a commitment to social justice causes and were both involved in activism, particularly within the African American community. It is known that they were part of overlapping circles within the broader civil rights and Pan-African movements. Olombe Brath was a prominent African American activist, cultural historian. He played a crucial role in various movements, including the Black is Beautiful movement, the Black Arts movement, and the anti-apartheid movement. Viola Plummer and Olombe Brath participated in similar events and initiatives aimed at advancing the causes they both championed. Their collective efforts contributed to the broader struggle for social justice, human rights, and the empowerment of African American and African communities.
Olombe's impact on educating us, but more than educating, now you gotta take it up, you gotta do something. It was within that context that the kinds of things that were happening in our community continue. As always, you know, the oppressor comes with another way to kill, dampen, do everything they can to a movement. Hence the crack epidemic, right? And so how we, Olombe, Father Lucas, Plummer, Wareham, Clay, got involved in that was Abubadika, Sonny Carson, who was him and Olombe, 6 o'clock every morning, was on the telephone about all of the things that had to be done. Abubadika's mother-in-law was killed by a crack addict. Hence, the demand to stop the crack in our community. They formed the Black Men's Movement Against Crack. And it turned out 300 to 400 to 500 Black men on a weekly basis, right, to clean up the crack in our community.
The Black Men's Movement Against Crack was founded in 1986. The founding members were Coltrane Chimurenga, Sonny Carson, and Viola Plummer, in response to the devastating impact of crack cocaine on African American communities in the United States. The movement was a grassroots effort that sought to address the social, economic, and health consequences of the crack epidemic, which disproportionately affected Black neighborhoods. During this period, crack cocaine became a widespread and highly addictive drug, leading to a surge in drug-related violence, crime, and social decay in urban areas, particularly in African American communities. The Black Men's Movement Against Crack sought to address the root causes of the crack epidemic and its impact on individuals, families, and communities. Key elements and efforts of the Black Men's Movement Against Crack included community organizing. Activists and community leaders mobilized to raise awareness about the destructive effects of crack cocaine. They organized community forums, town hall meetings, and grassroots campaigns to educate people about the dangers of drug abuse and its impact on the community. The movement advocated for anti-drug initiatives and rehabilitation programs as alternatives to punitive measures. Activists argued that a more comprehensive and compassionate approach was needed to address the root causes of drug addiction. Activists argued that tackling these issues was crucial to preventing drug addiction.
The slogan became, "Close the crack house." There's never a Black men's movement in the world, nowhere, ever, that is absent of Black women. So no matter what the name, and the name really because Lombe and Father Lucas in particular, their position was, where's these brothers that left these 15 and 20-year-olds run rampant in our community, right? So Black women is always at the PTA meetings, etc., everywhere. Now it's time for the brothers to take the point, hence the Black Men's Movement Against Crack. The struggle that Ilombe participated in was holistic. And if I could say, it didn't have a beginning and a middle and an end. That's not who Ilombe was. And so that the motion was a continuous motion to fight oppression, right? Nationally and internationally.
The December 12th movement is a political and social activist organization that originated in the United States. It was founded in 1987, and its name is derived from the date of December 12th, 1973, which marks the anniversary of the death of Amilcar Cabral, a prominent anti-colonial revolutionary leader from Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. The December 12th movement has been involved in advocating for the rights of people of African descent, both in the United States and globally. The organization focuses on issues such as racial and economic justice, human rights, and self-determination for African diaspora communities. It has been actively engaged in protests, demonstrations, and various campaigns to address systemic inequalities and advocate for the empowerment of marginalized communities.
The work of the December 12th movement continued to the struggle to support the liberation of Africa, Southern Africa in particular. The United Nations has this thing called the Committee on the Status of Women. And the women from Africa, and like I said, in Southern Africa in particular, would come. We would help publicize their side event, right? We would also publish what they were saying was happening in Africa. as the contradictions began to, I guess, zero in on a particular country from our perspective, the idea of Africa and African liberation was always a part of what was happening, right? And so, there was so many demonstrations in support of South Africa, right? That Ilombe was the point person on. South Africa and Namibia, in that part of the southern part of Africa. And when Mandela was free, the idea of where he was going to speak, and interestingly enough, and not to get off on the negative aspect, sometimes our movement assumes that certain people should be in certain places and other people should not. Why? I don't know. I guess that's the way it is. But Ilombe, for us, led the Free South Africa movement here in New York City for us. Here we were then a part of the whole United Nations movement there. We were part of the movement, the non-aligned movement, right? Where the whole support and discussion around Mandela being free. Ilombe was key in that. When Mandela was released, the euphoria that apartheid was dead was tainted with Botha, Worcester, and the rest of them, and got its expression in their interference in Angola and in Namibia. So that work continued. December 12th movement then, it was then December 12th movement, but Ilombe in particular, right, that we've got to now make sure that we tell the truth of what's happening in South Africa. And in Zimbabwe, one of the countries where we had done a lot of work during the liberation struggle. And during that time when I said to you about the African Liberation Support Committee, one of the members of ZANU-PF came to African Liberation Day and forged this connection between our work and the work there. And so we continued the work through the United Nations. And I guess I said earlier, we became members of the non-aligned movements NGO. We got status in the first in the OAU and now in the African Union. We have consultative status with the SWAPO party out of Namibia. And the work is really to continue to get the information to our people about what's happening there. Hence, the need for Ilombe. I mean, Ilombe he could generate people listening and then taking it up so that the work continued through the UN, and as things for us you know, the December 12th movement, and prior to that, it's what, 40, 50 years old. So that the cadre there now were, people sick, people age out, young people have a different drive. I think young people have been attacked by the attack on their culture. Hip hop, I think, had it not been attacked, it would be a different culture. But there's never always everybody, every organization at the same time. It just isn't. And so you always speak, or I always speak from what I know, and I never assume that that's everybody and everywhere. But what I can say unequivocally, there's not a Long Bay in that process in terms of physical Long Bay, but impact of a Long Bay, absolutely. A Long Bay had was to establish your humanity as men and women of Africa. That's who you are. Uncompromising. That's who you are. You are an African. So everything you think of, right? Just think of its origin, its impact, and who brought it to us.
Viola Plummer stands as a dedicated and influential figure in the ongoing struggle for civil rights, social justice, and the empowerment of African American communities. Throughout her life, Plummer's unwavering commitment to addressing systemic racism, economic inequality, and the impacts of imperialism has left an indelible mark on the landscape of activism. As a key figure in the December 12th movement, she played a pivotal role in advocating for the rights and liberation of African people globally. Viola Plummer's leadership, resilience, and tireless efforts in the pursuit of justice serve as an inspiration to those who continue to strive for a more equitable and just society. Her legacy endures in the ongoing fight against oppression, inequality, and the quest for a world where all individuals are afforded their inherent dignity and rights.
like to support these broadcasts, we encourage you to send contributions to P.O. Box 300851, Jamaica, New York 11430. Thank you.